What's up? Welcome to a new episode of Movie Schmovie. This is episode 370. My name is Steve, one of the co-hosts, and as always, I'm joined by
Ron
and John. Do you guys get excited when we roll over into a new digit, like when we go from 69 to 70? Like you get a little charge out of that?
Yeah.
Like, you know.
I think I get excited when we just go to the next number.
Oh, just the next number. You get a charge every week.
You just get another episode, I think that's a good step. But yes,
exciting.
You're right, John. Like it's a nice clean going up in the tens and then we go to the hundreds, it's fun.
Well, the other thing is I think this is getting to 370 is a mark of maturity that we made it through episode 369 and we didn't make any 69 jokes. No one said up top my brother or anything like that. So
at least not that you kept it in the episode.
Oh, there were 20 of them that I edited out. Yeah.
We tried to get 69 references in there, but we didn't make it.
We actually high-fived 69 times. It took a
That's what it was, yeah. All right, let's get into this. This week's required viewing. Ronald, you picked it last week. You want to remind everybody what you chose, and we'll kind of go through it?
Yeah. A 2023 Guy Ritchie movie.
Ronald's sleepy. Everyone should know.
We're all tired.
We're all tired, but Ronald might be the tiredest of us all because I at least had like a 20-minute nap.
Pretty tired.
Anyway,
my baby wakes up with these like weird sessions. I think that her nightmares about blocks. Like she's trying to put the blocks away, and they just keep coming and replenishing, and she can't put them all away. That's what I imagine that she has nightmares about.
I used to think that with Henry, like what are his little baby when he's having an unrestful sleep, what is it?
Yeah.
And I would think like it's something like that, or it's like snacks that are just out of reach and there's no grown-up hand reaching in to hand them to you. Yeah.
It's crazy. Speaking of snack that can't be reached, Guy Ritchie's 2023 movie Operation Fortune was very hard to find. Like,
good point.
It kind of been announced and disappeared for a little bit. Didn't know what happened to it, and then it wound up in the theater. So I was super interested. We're all a fan of at least one of Guy Ritchie's movies. So what did you think about the 2023 espionage movie, Operation Fortune?
I'll start by just saying that I really liked it. I mean, I feel like we kind of mentioned it last week when you picked it, but I feel like in most cases, a lot of his like these action, thriller, espionage, whatever you want to tag it with. Like when he's kind of in that lane, I feel like he's at least making an entertaining movie. And it's mainly because the movies move fast and he always kind of has a nice assembly of actors, actresses that either are regulars that he started to use or people that have, at this point been in multiple films of his. And in this case, you have a cast that have, a handful of them that have been in, multiple movies of his, with Statham and Hugh Grant at this point. And even, what's the dude's name? I think he was in a couple of the other movie too. Who plays the sniper? Who?
Wasn't Josh Hartnett in another Guy Ritchie movie too?
He may have been. I was thinking about the other guy on Fortune's team, the sniper guy.
I don't know the actor's name, but JJ was the character.
Bugsy Malone or something like that. I can't remember his name.
He's
only been in like he's only been in like 3 movies, and it's like 2 of the 3 are Guy Ritchie movies.
See, I didn't recognize him, but definitely, I'm pretty sure Josh Hartnett was in that LA. Wasn't there like Jason Statham, and it was like an LA armored truck movie?
Wrath of Man.
Wrath of Man, whatever. Josh Hartnett was in that.
Yeah, he was. That's right.
And speaking of, he was really fun in this. I thought it was fun to see Josh Hartnett get to do some, but I don't know that I've seen him do like a comic riff on almost like he was doing a riff on like a Brad Pitt sort of persona of like a likable alpha actor guy who just everybody seems to know who he is but who's never been in this type of real life threatening situation. And they managed to do both things, kind of the jokes about like, oh, here's a guy who's out of his league impersonating. He impersonates this guy for a living, but here he is actually being that guy, and he can't do it. But he also had a couple of moves within the story. And even though this isn't the kind of movie that I don't think anyone's going to come out saying they just loved, I think that one of the things that makes you like it, like you said, Steve, is that each character does kind of get a couple of moves. Like Hugh Grant, if you're a Hugh Grant fan, he's got a couple of moves in there. He gets to do something kind of fun. Aubrey Plaza, I still don't think people quite 100% know how to write for her, but when it clicks really well. The scenes where she's like trying to be funny within the context of the character, it usually is like cringy, but when she's just doing the sort of femme fatale or sort of like espionage stuff that you can do in this kind of story, I thought she was really a solid member of that little team. I mean, this felt like a light, fluffy movie. I've seen movies recently that were much heavier in their approach to this kind of violence, and this was like cartoon almost. What did you think, Ronald?
I thought it was okay. Kind of middle of the road for Guy Ritchie movies, but Guy Ritchie's middle of the road, as a lot of people's, excellent, which is it's just one of those things. Like it's probably my least favorite one that I've seen in a while, even below the Night movie, King Arthur. It just something didn't click, and I was like, oh, this is why it was distributed the way it was. Like it, you kind of get a feeling like there's a reason why this is having a hard time coming to the States. It's not that it's bad, but it's like it's not at the excellent level. It's just
it's very middling. It's like it's not even trying to be excellent. I mean, it's funny. It's in contrast to a movie we just saw, John Wick, Chapter 4, where like each fight scene has this consideration given to it. And I think every fight scene in Operation Fortune was like, we all know Jason Statham can kick ass, so let's just have him go ching chong ching, like skibbity scabbity do on somebody, and then it was like it was done. And it was like, I don't know that I quite saw a fight that made sense happen. You know what I mean? But I know that he kicked the guy's ass. And there were several moments that were like that, where it felt like I don't know. It just was an indication of the kind of what you're talking about, the middle of the road aspirations, even of a movie like this.
For sure. But that doesn't mean it was bad. Like I said, I got through it. I'm like, okay, this is a solid Guy Ritchie movie. It's
It does seem like the kind of movie that will, like, when it does come to video on demand or streaming, it does seem like it's kind of in that lane where, it will find a much bigger audience than than it has found so far in theaters. But because it does have, the cast that people will recognize, and, like John said, Aubrey Plaza is kind of having a moment. She's in, more than she's ever been in recently.
Yeah.
And, I just think, just these kinds of movies, like, I don't know, it's probably the weaker of the three, I guess, in terms of like The Gentleman and Wrath of Man and now this. But like you said, Ronald, it's like, even though I'd say maybe it's the weakest of those three, it's still better than a lot of like this kind of movie.
Much better
that gets a release like this got, or it just has more to offer, I think. And like an important thing for me, especially recently, finding time to watch all this stuff, is like it moves quickly. It's not too long. It's enough there to kind of get the story across. I do like there's a scene, like the kinds of things that happen in the movie where like it's not a perfect like action movie. Like
no.
there's a lot of bumbling things that happen, even though Jason Statham could kick anybody's ass. It's like he's like making mistakes, that he's either not telling people, or he went out the back door when she told him to come out the front.
See, that stuff worked great for me. The sort of
like
banter about how everybody's kind of in that zone you're talking about, Steve.
Yes.
That stuff worked great.
Like they're so great at their jobs, but like everyone, especially him as the guy, seems to be like just doing dumb stuff. Like he loses the lawyer consigliere guy, and like when he comes after him, he like pushes him off a building. So like he's just like creating more problems for the group, even though he's so good at what he does.
Well, that was one of the best
all
gags,
that stuff
Steve,
worked.
Where the guy falls, and like we think with everyone, they're like, "Oh, that's not the guy we thought it was," and then here comes the guy they thought it was, and he basically dies in the same way.
Does the same thing.
That was a good gag.
That guy, the guy who's the Bugsy Malone actor, I forget the name of the character in the movie, JJ or whatever you said it.
Yeah.
Like when he's like, "That's not Ben," and then the guy falls, he's like, "That's Ben." like that's good. Like that's fun stuff, and it's got enough of that to kind of keep it moving.
And I liked the little bromance between Josh Hartnett and Hugh Grant. I thought that worked well too. It was one of the best. Again, because it was a comic conceit you could see coming, but it felt like it was part of the way the movie did kind of keep me guessing. Because I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm sort of like maybe I'm leaning towards Steve in that I'm coming out sort of saying I had fun watching this, but I know what you mean, Ronald, about like there were moments where I almost felt like I wasn't really watching a movie, or I honestly, after seeing John Wick Chapter 4, I've been kind of blown out, and I watched John Wick 3 before that because I hadn't seen it before. So I've seen like awesome, intense gunplay and action, like 5.5 hours of it or whatever in the last couple days. So this felt very much like almost like low budget, like middle, like
definitely
as though this is Guy Ritchie using his friends' yachts and just going to ports that he wants to go to and shooting it. It didn't feel like it was being that ambitious with how it was staging things or how the action played out, but it did keep me guessing enough in the storyline. And it's that kind of movie where they develop these characters with little in jokes that by the time it gets to the end, there's 2 or 3 little things to serve. You know, there's like the plot, then there's how the characters end up, and then there's the overall sort of tonal little whatever they're trying to juggle for this movie. And I think I would have come down against this movie much more negatively if it didn't seem to be so light. Like if it seemed like it was taking itself seriously, I think a lot of the kind of not reaching for excellence would have bothered me. But as it is, it's almost like the Adam Sandler movie version of a Guy Ritchie movie, where it feels like, oh, these are people, like you said, Steve, some people who've worked together before and some people that are new that seem like they'd be fun to play with. And they've gone to some great locations, and no one probably is complaining about their experience making this movie. I mean, I'm just imagining that. Maybe Guy Ritchie's horrible to work for, but this seems like it would be one of those fun shoots, like it light and frothy. So yeah, it's you know, if you look at the reviews for it, critics have been pretty, like the people who like it are saying, yeah, it's fun, go see it, and the people who hate it are saying like, this is, you know, what Guy Ritchie has lost it. I definitely don't agree with that second opinion, but I do think it's kind of interesting that Guy Ritchie is at this point now where, as you've said, Steve, and as you kind of indicated, Ronald, he could kind of churn this type of movie out and never make a major movie again. Do you know what I mean? Never make a movie that really grabs people by the collar again.
Yeah.
And that'd be a bummer, because I do think the guy still has some style and some of the ways this movie was put together, and some of the humor and the, you know, the way dialogue overlays, like sometimes it's showing you a flash forward, sometimes it's showing you a flashback. I think that stuff is still kind of fun and creative, and I don't know, there's some structural things to enjoy, but it does not feel like tightly wound, like Clockwork Precision Guy Ritchie. This definitely feels like the more relaxed kind of format.
But yeah, I mean, I would still recommend this movie. I think if it's something that you have interest in, you know, while it's in theaters. If not, I'm sure probably in the next couple of weeks or a month at probably most, it'll probably be on a couple different platforms for VOD. But yeah, I would just one more time. I mean, I miss Josh Hartnett. I used to be like obsessed with him.
Too,
when he had a moment back in like the early 2000s, you know, I was really a big fan of his, and kind of felt like he never really kind of got out of a certain lane that Hollywood had kind of put him in, like especially in that Pearl Harbor time of his career.
Yeah. It's like they wanted to make him boring, and then he kind of
just like very bland and like just that leading man. But I don't know. It just, I'm glad to see, you know, he's got a role in Oppenheimer coming out this summer. He's got a couple of other things lined up that seem a little different. So yeah, I'm just happy to see him in this. Yeah, I thought he was great in it. Yeah. Anything else you guys want to add to Operation Fortune?
I guess there's not. I mean, I think we mentioned all the people that are notable in it, and I think people kind of know at this point if they're on board for a middle of the road Guy Ritchie spy comedy, thriller, or whatever we want to call this. But yeah. So that's now your turn, Steve. Right, for the next required viewing. What are you gonna say?
Yeah. So mine is also going to be a newer film that came out this year officially. This is a movie that I heard out of some of the festivals last year that finally got a release. And my main reason for picking it is mainly because, well, I heard good things about the movie in general, but I'm always in line to try to support any movie that our boy Jonathan Tucker is in. So he has a movie that came out on video on demand recently called Palm Trees and Powerlines that was supposed to be very good. A couple critics that I really respect and follow were kind of raving about it last year. Yeah, I don't know. It just seems like an interesting movie. It's a drama. It's on video on demand right now, like I said. To give you the synopsis per IMDb, A disconnected teenage girl enters a relationship with a man twice her age. She sees him as the solution to all her problems, but his intentions are not what they seem. And I think Jonathan might be the guy. But
I mean, I've got to say, when I hear that situation, his intentions sound pretty bad already. So if his intentions are not what they seem, does that mean maybe they're not bad, or does that mean we're supposed to
the
think
opposite of bad? Right.
Right. Well, even the description has got twists in it. No, that's interesting. Obviously, I'm sure that he's done nothing but sit around and listen to the show since he appeared on it a couple years back.
That was my assumption. So I just figured Jonathan, I'd just sit around and wait for him to have this movie come out. Good job. He's also got, on a side note, I just saw an ad on Twitter today. I think it's a Blumhouse podcast production for iHeartRadio. It's called like the Montauk tapes or something. It's some kind of like mystery thriller podcast series that he's in or leading.
So, I think I've seen that name and I had completely forgotten that I'd read something about that.
But, yeah, I don't know. I gotta track that podcast down. But yeah, I'm a big fan of his. So yeah, Palm Trees and Powerlines. I know you can get it on, any of the video on demand services. I saw it on Vudu, Amazon, all those places. It's everywhere for a purchase or rent if you want to check it out. But it came out this year, and we'll talk about it next week. Cool. That brings us to the main review for this week, which I'm glad that the two of you were able to go see this movie. We're kind of reviewing this a little early because the embargo is lifted. This movie actually doesn't come out till next week, but I say we get out there, get ahead of it, and you guys just tell us all what you thought of John Wick Chapter 4.
Ronald,
I loved it from start to finish. It is a lot of movie. It is 2 hours, 47 minutes of John Wick. So if you're down for action from pretty much the beginning to the end, and it feels like they're trying to, definitely did this in ascending order of crazy, there's some set pieces that are just beautiful. And, the fact that they kind of embrace even parody what Keanu Reeves is kind of in this movie, this kind of one word answer sort of person, is really interesting. And I kind of loved it. And the last thing I'll say is maybe this feels like more than any other John Wick, a very specific love letter to a couple of stars that are in the movie. Please see the movie as soon as you can, because it really is a bunch of stuff that they don't tell you in the trailer that probably will be revealed later on. Relationships with people, lengths of time that people are in the movie. Be careful. And that's something I don't want to spoil at all. But really,
I like that idea, Ronald. Let's do this one. Let's do it the way we did Scream 6, completely spoiler free, until we can come back and have a little bit more of a conversation with Steve maybe about it. But just as far as like the general feelings, I'm going to mention some people in the movie, but I'm not going to talk maybe about what they get to do in it. But I mean, Donnie Yen is so fun to watch in this thing. And it's like
he's blind again.
He's blind again, and the way they use that, the visual texture of the way they use his way of finding his way around and like showing the tip of his cane, and he'll be like running it along the wall, and you're following it. I mean, it's that. Okay, I guess we're getting into talking about Donnie Yen, talking about the cane, talking about these things. We're talking about a little bit. I just realized his character's name is Kane, and he carries a cane for some reason.
The category Kane with the cane. Yeah,
I didn't think about that. I guess these are pretty simple films in terms of how characters are named and stuff. So it's like, otherwise he would have been Blind Fighter or something. So I guess it's good that he got a name. It's actually Kane. But I mean, these movies are this is the precision I was talking about that you don't get in something like Operation Fortune. This is where each sequence is envisioned as a set piece, and sometimes almost to the extent that it's too far. I mean, this movie is long. This movie is closing in on 3 hours. I think there's a power that it gains by being that epic in length that I can see why they went for it. I do still think there's a version of this movie that could have been closer to 2 hours that would have been just as good. But I also understand that there's this weird thing happening with the John Wick series. These are like a huge event, tentpole release when they come out now. And it's Keanu Reeves and I'm going to screw up the guy's name. What's his name? Chad
Stahelski.
it's like, this is the thing where they go off and they brainstorm and they cook up the kind of movie they want to do, and they bring in the kind of people they can bring in. I mean, you're getting Donnie Yen. You're at the point where you're just like, well, who can we have him fight with in this movie? And it's like, it's Donnie Yen. And it reminds me of how, like, in John Wick 3, there's that scene where he fights the tall guy in the library. And it's meant to be a reference, I believe, to kind of throw back to, I think it's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar that Bruce Lee fought in a movie. Like, they're thinking about that sort of thing, like placing these movies in the kind of history of a certain kind of, not action movie. You could say martial arts, but let's just call them like fight movies, you know? and the fights are long, you know, and it is a little bludgeoning. I remember towards the end of John Wick 3, which is only 2 hours and 10 minutes long, feeling like, man, that's a lot of headshots that I just listened to. That's a lot of like loud noises, repetitive noises, but there is something that gains, like it has an effect on you. You feel a little beat up maybe by the end of these movies, and maybe that's kind of part of the fun. But I also think it's just, this guy started out as a stunt coordinator or stunt man, right? Chad S.
He was actually, I think, the famously Brad Pitt's stunt double in Fight Club.
And was he or was he not the guy who worked with Keanu on the Matrix films too? Was that,
he was that as well?
Okay, so here's a guy who's been part of the absolute best example of like precision action photography, fight photography, and I just think these movies are approached with so much love and passion that even like drone shots of a city at night will kind of have your jaw drop a little bit, because of it's like the blacks are black and the colors are bright and the movement is constant, and it does exhaust you maybe by the time you get I would have loved if this movie had an intermission. I mean, I really think it could have had like a 5-minute intermission with some soft music or something in the middle.
Yeah, for sure.
It would have felt like it was part of the humor of the movie almost to do that. But I don't know, it's built up its own little mythology. There's a part of my soul that believes that John Wick, the first one, will always be the perfect jewel, because it didn't go so far, and it was more grounded in character, and it felt more like a guy going up against some bad guys. But when they made John Wick 2, they said, okay, we did that movie. Right. Now let's do a video game where Keanu Reeves goes through environments and kills people. and
sure.
And it I don't know, there's something beautiful about it getting bigger and longer and more bloated each time. Like, so the fact that this movie is the longest one and has the most fight sequences in it and the most crazy like running gags, and wouldn't you say, Ronald, too, the most humor maybe of any of these movies? There's a lot of humor that comes from that. You know, the way Indiana Jones or Harrison Ford can get humor out of just being a normal guy, Bruce Willis, like normal guy who gets hurt when he's fighting. Like, there's a lot of humor involved in the, God, I got to keep doing this. Keanu Reeves has started to play that a bit, like in between fights. He has this like catching his breath and do I have to do this again kind of thing. And there's one moment towards the end that had the whole theater rolling in the aisles, and I couldn't explain why it was funny, so I won't spoil it, but you know the part I'm talking about, Ronald. It's just,
oh yeah,
where it's like they're using the idea of action in all directions. It almost becomes a slapstick movie in some ways, that some of the humor comes from extreme things that are done to the human body, and a couple of like pratfalls that are just epic. So, I mean, I think, again, this is another thing where you're either on board for it or not, but as someone who still yearns for the simplicity of John Wick, the first one, I really admire what they've done with this franchise. And so I don't know whether I would just say unequivocal I loved it. I do think that I do think it's exhausting, and I don't know that that's not part of it. So I don't know that I'm dinging it by saying this at the end of this movie, you won't want to see another fight scene. You'll be glad that it's over. And I also think that it'll be interesting to hear the conversation when this movie's over, how people feel about, like, you know, there's talk now of prequels and spinoffs, and this is becoming that kind of franchise now. So it's interesting to think of like what John Wick 4 means as like, this is the one that this is what brought people in. So if they do try to splinter off at this point, I don't know. I think this movie might mark a turning point in the kind of what we think of as the John Wick franchise, you know?
Just to clarify real quick, I just looked it up. I was wrong. So Chad was the stunt double for Keanu in Matrix, and also for Brandon Lee in The Crow.
Wow.
But David Leitch, he's done he's a part of the John Wick franchise too, and they co-run 8711 Productions. But David was Brad Pitt's stunt double, and David's a director as well. He did, I think he actually did one of the John Wick films, and he did like Bullet Train. He did one of the Fast movies. But yeah, the two of them are like legendary stuntmen, especially in the last couple of decades. And the fact that they're a part of, you know, this franchise, which is kind of like arguably the new blueprint for, you know, what you can get out of a really well choreographed and executed action film. I mean, like, having not seen this one, just my feelings, like I was telling you guys when I started seeing some of the early word on it, like, this is definitely one of my favorite action franchises, period. Not even just recent ones. I just think that the quality is there so far, the three that I've seen, in different ways, like John was explaining. Yeah, they're so exciting to watch. And the fact that Keanu is really the guy, that makes it even better, just because like everybody loves Keanu Reeves, and he's just great, and I think he's great as the character. So I mean, I just think that what they've been able to accomplish with this franchise is just, it's phenomenal, honestly. Like the scale that you guys are describing, that they've kind of ramped up as they've went along. If you compare it to what John Wick was in terms of budgets and expectations and things like that, this has become like Lionsgate's like cash cow. Like this is the pride of Lionsgate currently. Yeah. And that's why what they're doing, what John just mentioned, which is, they're having the Continental spinoff, they're having the Ballerina spinoff, they're having, and whatever else is to come, depending on how those do. But I mean, these are huge properties. And from, the word that you guys have already said and what I've heard from some other people who have seen it, like, it just, there's no way this one fails. It just seems like, and
it's special, man.
It seems like it.
This one's doing something a little different. Like I said, the homage to, so like, you talk about stunt double. So they hired one that was like a stunt double turned action star in Scott Adkins. Scott Adkins.
Oh, yeah.
You've probably seen him in a ton of things. He was in Ip Man 4, Avengement, which is a special bloody movie. If you want to see something that feels like Nothing and John Wick kind of combined, Avengement is it. And Accident Man 1 and 2. Those are his ones that he's kind of.
Nobody, or is there a movie called Nothing?
Yeah, maybe I'm thinking about Nothing. No, was I thinking Nobody?
I didn't know. Honestly, I wasn't correcting you.
No. What was I saying? What was I? Maybe Nobody. Oh man, I'm tired of shit.
Either way, it's one of something he's associated with. But you've never seen him like this. I guarantee you've never seen.
You've never seen him like this. He's doing something really cool. Shamir Anderson, who was in Stowaway and Apple TV's Invasion. Man, it's like he's asking something of these. The whole thing is asking something of these action stars that you don't get to see very often. It's like this range of emotion that you kind of really didn't see in the previous ones, especially with the villains, especially with people that are kind of moving around that are supposed to be like opposing forces to John Wick. So they took their time with this one, man, and it feels special. It feels really special.
Well, it's like it's cool, and it makes it. I mean, it makes it one of those franchises where you look at and go, okay, this is really pretty consistent in terms of quality, but it also seems to know that it can't keep doing the same thing over and over again, and that's why this one feeling a little different does feel like it adds to the kind of specialness of it. But when they do, what they've done is kind of do a little bit more of a globe-trotting John Wick story, but they've added it into a million fights type movie, and so you get both sort of textures. You're right, you do spend time hopping from character to character and place to place a little bit more. There's a little bit more going on in that way.
What's your favorite?
Also, I think they realize they can't keep just saying there's another level above this group. They can't just keep saying. And this movie manages to find a way to stop just adding a layer above the layer of saying, okay, this is still the same authority we've been dealing with, but now we're seeing a different set of rules or a different kind of combat. What were you about to say?
Favorite set piece, which is your favorite location that they had before we.
I'm gonna. I hope I don't forget one. I'll think for a second. Why don't you say what yours is?
I mean, it's an emotional connection. The Arc de Triomphe. I had a really emotional experience there, and it had to do with how busy it was. It's a super random thing.
But the movie uses that for comedy and action. The fact that they're in the middle of this roundabout.
So one time I was there and I took a picture of the Arc, and it's busy, man. It's hard to process the circle that's happening. And so I posted it, and my dad called me, and he's like, this looks like Ben-Hur. And I was like, yeah, it does. It's like cars, and they're not hitting each other. There's like this beautiful poetry of them weaving in and out of each other. I don't know how they do it. I don't know how they make the agreement that, hey, I'm turning out of the circle. Please don't destroy my car. but it works somehow.
You're making me want to see it again. You're like you talking about that sequence is making me want to be watching that sequence. That's the kind of movie this is, where
Steve,
it's like so immersive.
it is the craziest scene. I've never seen anything shot like it. I've never seen, and Keanu's just feels really good in it. Like it feels like it doesn't feel like he's out of his element. It feels like something that like how the fuck like it may have been a thing where he tried to put it in all the movies and he's like, can we do something with cars? And they're like, no. Can we do something with cars? No. We got the budget now. Can we do something with cars? And he's like, yeah, let's do it in Paris.
He's like a teddy bear that people love, right? Like people love Keanu Reeves. And yet you watch a movie like this and you recognize he's also a guy who is not fucking around. Like all those martial arts moves and all the training he must go through and the tuning. I mean, as a person who's similar in age to Keanu, I can tell you, I couldn't do a fraction of the things that he's doing in this movie, even if he's showing his age in ways that make the character kind of more interesting. He's always had this kind of funny little run, like a stiff run or something. You know, the kind of like bow-legged or something.
Yeah.
It's kind of like he's got like a wobble to his run,
right? But it adds to that Harrison Ford, Bruce Willis human effect. But in this, it really seems like, and I noticed it in the third one too. It seems like he's carrying his side a little bit when he's running, but it helps this character because it's like here's a guy who gets up from a fight and has to run and knows that when he gets to the next place, it's probably going to be another fight. But if he doesn't run, it's going to be a fight right now. So it's like he's got to decide when to run and when to fight, and when to hide and when to call somebody, and he's running out of people to call. I just think that is it's what we're saying, like the physicality of the way he plays an action scene like that, Ronald. It reminds me of how Tom Cruise's action physicality is part of the humor of the Mission Impossible movies, because we know that he's in his mid 50s or older, and it's like we know that he's pushing it, and we know that he's like he doesn't have to stop and look at the camera and say, I'm getting too old for this. We feel it. And it makes the run is funny. The jumps are funny. You know, there's just something about it. And when I say funny, I just mean there's something kind of human and endearing about it. I'll say my favorite sequence, since you mentioned the roundabout, the stairs. I mean, those stairs.
Oh my God.
Or the steps. Let's call them steps. I guess they're outdoors. So I'll say the steps. There's a lot of steps. There's a big fight, Steve, that happens on this outdoor, like a park that's like in a city that's just a huge, like one set of steps followed by, and it's just they use every possible, like it makes it like a video game where you're climbing up. It's like Donkey Kong meets, you know, the Three Stooges meets John Wick.
And people materialize from everywhere. They're like,
I know, people coming out of the side, people,
the back, the side.
Yeah.
I think I saw like a behind the scenes of that sequence.
And it's not like he makes it to the top and gets to stay at the top. It's a constant two steps forward, one step back kind of progression. And you as the audience are feeling the sense that when he gets to the top, we know that there's something climactic that can happen up there. And so it does feel like it's exactly the point in one of these movies where you'll be getting tired of the movie if it's not working, because you're like, why are they postponing the fight we know has to happen? You know, because there's a fight that we know has to happen that hasn't happened yet. And this movie's got you like it. Maybe if you've gotten a little tired before this, these action scenes we're talking about, they re-energize you, and they happen right after another. That I heard somewhere that there's like 14 set pieces in this movie, and I didn't count them, but I don't doubt it.
Jesus,
wow.
So long story short, see this movie.
Yeah. Okay. Good. I plan to. To put you both in the spot. Rank the John Wick movies from your favorite down. Just give me the numbers: 4, 3, 2, 1, whatever it is.
Oh yeah. First, least to most.
No, favorite to least.
Favorite to least. 1, 4, 2, 3.
Okay.
I haven't seen 2 recently enough, but I agree with I would have 1, 4, and then 2 or 3. I don't know. It would be, it could be flipped. I don't know. It's none of them. I don't dislike any of them, but I do think that after seeing 3, I was a little worried that, oh man, am I going to be able to enjoy watching that with 40 more minutes? Because 3 exhausted me. I do think 4 was a better paced or had more narrative or something. I don't know, whatever it was that made me not feel that way. Maybe it was just sitting in a theater and seeing it huge. But yeah, I think 1, 4, 3, 2 or 1, 4, 2, 3. I don't know, but one of those.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
No problem.
All right, cool. Well, we'll talk a little bit more about it maybe next week if I have a chance. Well, actually, probably the week after, because I don't think we have any more screenings for it. So I'll try to check it out opening weekend. Okay. What else? What else do we see? Well, I know 2 of us checked out Cocaine Bear.
Yes.
Cocaine Bear. Like I felt pretty good last week when I made the statement that I felt like it was going to be out the following Tuesday on video on demand. I know. I feel like I have Universal. I got their number. Like I know when they're going to drop these things. But yeah, so Cocaine Bear is out on VOD. If you haven't seen that, it's still in theaters, doing really well. This is another big hit for Universal. John, what did you think of Cocaine Bear?
It's better than Snakes on a Plane.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good statement. Yeah.
I mean, if it's the Snakes on a Plane, that was when people were excited about Cocaine Bear. I wanted to say to them, do you not remember Snakes on a Plane? And when I saw a bunch of young kids being excited about Cocaine Bear, I said to them, listen, youngins, there was once a movie called Snakes on a Plane, where it's like the name, the poster, the concept had us all going, this is going to be fun. And then it was an attempt to generate a cult classic, and those almost never quite click. I think it's got more going on than that. I think there's some humor, there's some legit gore, there's some fun performances. It's by no means what I would call like a great or good movie, but it's entertaining, and it's like it is the fun version of what I thought it would be. Like, do you know what I mean, Steve? It's
definitely.
It's like when I saw that trailer, I thought, oh, that's either going to be this good or this bad. That's kind of, and it's more in the good direction. It was kind of fun and entertaining, and I do think that if you look at who's in it and you're saying, wow, look at all the people they got, that you do get people get some fun things to play within their realm, and yeah, I think it's. I don't know. I really don't know what to say about it except that it's better than the kind of boring cult movie on purpose that it could have been. It actually has something going for it, but it is still weird, and has things that don't work, and seems to be trying to make you like have moments of heart that don't quite click. But I don't know if this movie's not kind of making fun of that whole idea of like having moments that have heart in them. Like you just don't know. Like the cute precocious kids in this, they're a little too adorable. That almost feels like it's part of the joke, but it's sort of grating by the time the movie's over. But a local favorite, friend of friends. I don't know if you know Scott Seiss, but I know people who are close with him. But he's a local stand-up comic that had a big hit with those retail reaction TikTok videos that he shared.
Kia ones. Yeah,
I'm so proud of him, man.
He's great, and I mean, he's the right kind of. If I was him, I would be like, man, I'm so glad I got to play this kind of character in this kind of movie at this point in my career, because it's like a great that guy moment for Scott Seiss, and he makes the most of it. I think. Steve, what did you think of him or any of the other small comic?
No, he's great in it. Yeah, and I don't think there's anything. The characters that you see show up in the movie that you would recognize, I think are all just kind of there to have fun. I mean, I think that's I think that's the nicest thing to say, is that I feel like everybody that's a part of this movie is just kind of in on how kind of fun and silly the intention is behind the movie. And I think kind of leaning into the R rating and the gore and like, the enjoyment of tearing limbs off of people, and kind of somehow loosely basing this around an actual event that happened, is just kind of like a no-brainer. And I think that for the studio, for people that were involved, I still feel like I don't know how I don't think I really enjoy Elizabeth Banks as a director.
I was thinking the same thing. I don't quite think I agree with her.
It stands out.
Quality control or something that slips in some spots that's crucial.
And I feel like we've said that like a few times. We've seen some of her recent films that she's directed, but all to say, like the expectation and the reality of what this movie is it's pretty much there in terms of where I thought it was going to be. I thought it was pretty fun. I think it's probably worth checking out just for it is one of the ones that's kind of like Megan did earlier for Universal as well. Like it kind of got into the zeitgeist a bit. And I mean, geez, like Cocaine Bear was at the Oscars, you know what I mean? So it's like, it's that level of awareness that people know what Cocaine Bear is. And
Megan's the perfect comparison, Steve, because it's also not a great movie, but you can't say it didn't do what it came to do.
It's exactly what you think it is, right? Like it's right in that, it's right in that lane where like I can't really say like, is it a great movie? No, but I didn't expect it to be. I didn't think it was going to be. I thought it would be very much the same experience and feelings that I had watching it. It a lot of those like 80s kind of campy movies like this, like it's right in that that feeling. And it's just it's kind of wild like how successful it is. And because I was reading that like the budget was only like $30 million and the majority of it went towards FX work for the bear. and it's
It's
already
almost
made
purely CG, right?
it's made, yeah, it's all
Or
CG,
she's
and
almost.
yeah, and I think it's like at the time of recording this, I want to say it's over 70 million worldwide already. So I mean, that's before it even touches VOD. And again, the kind of movie that will probably be very successful on digital platforms or
Well, I mean,
streaming.
when I was watching it, I was kind of cramming to watch it, and so I didn't like announce it to the family so that I could watch it with them. And Nikki came in and saw that I was watching it and was like, "Oh, I wanted to see this," and she doesn't care about that kind of
Yeah,
thing. And she
yeah,
had that like, I was curious about this, and there
yeah.
was a little bit of, oh wait, it took her a while to realize, oh, that's Han Solo, the little things like that. But he was very funny in it, I thought.
Yeah, yeah.
And who else was funny? Well, Scott Stice we already mentioned. Is it Isaiah Whitlock? Is that actor's name? Not Isaiah Whitlock.
No, it's Ice Cube's son, right?
No, I'm talking about
Roy
Isaiah Whitlock
Jones.
Jr.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
the guy who
Oh,
the cop
yeah.
who was on the
The
wire. And
cop.
stuff. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah, that's Isaiah Whitlock Jr. He doesn't get to say shit in this one, but he does.
No.
But I mean, he's doing his thing, and it kept reminding me of different kinds of movies that have this sort of, you're surprised at how brutal it is because it does have the sheen of like an Elizabeth Banks kind of middle of the road movie. You're not expecting it to be the body count to be quite as high as it is, and for there to be quite as much gore. But I think that's the kind of chemistry that might make it an interesting watch for people. It's just how much it wants you to care a little bit about these goofy characters, and then it has somebody's leg gets ripped off and thrown at them.
Right.
It's like there is something kind of interesting about that. But I do think maybe a director with more style could have made this movie really work, as opposed to just kind of come together. And the other thing too, Ronald, is it makes you feel for the bear. Like the bear is unquestionably the hero of this piece. Like whenever you feel bad for the bear. You don't want anything bad. As bad as this bear is being, you never want anything bad to happen to this bear, because every time they show it, it's just acting like an animal. It doesn't know it's on a killing spree. It's just trying to get more of that powder.
That's crazy. A funny thing that came up, I was listening to a podcast interview with Radio Silence, and they were being interviewed about Scream 6, and they were talking about their relationship with Samara Weaving and her involvement in that movie. And I didn't realize that they were initially supposed to make Cocaine Bear. They were attached to Cocaine Bear, mainly because Samara, her husband, wrote the film, Chris Warden, who also wrote the Babysitter movies that she's in, that over at Netflix. But it was interesting because they said that they got.
I knew that name from, but that makes sense.
Yeah, so they were attached to this and were developing it, and then Scream 2022 came along, and they had to leave the project. But they're like really close with Samara and her husband. That's and she's in Scream 6. But I thought that was interesting because you mentioned maybe in the hands of a different filmmaker or filmmakers.
Oh, wow.
I feel like Radio Silence actually is a fucking amazing. That would have been a great pairing for a movie like this. I think I would have loved to seen the version of this movie that they made. I just think that they're like perfectly in line with what this movie is, and maybe would have been a little better in certain ways. But I don't know, I thought that was really interesting that I had no idea they were attached.
I wonder if they were at any point. I mean, I wonder if that is an indicate, like we're saying this movie has more gore than you might think. Like, I wonder if that's
maybe.
It just seems like if it was built from the ground up as an Elizabeth Banks project, maybe it wouldn't feel so much like a legit sort of bear slasher movie, which is kind of what it is.
Yeah, right. It is. That's a good way of saying it. But I would check it out. I mean, it's fun. It's much like earlier mentioning like Operation Fortune. Like it's a fun, entertaining. It's nothing special, but it's fun and it's entertaining. So, and a cool cast. Lots of people pop up for a moment or two here and there.
Yeah.
What else? Anything else you guys want to mention? Ronald, did you see anything else?
I just wanted to briefly talk about The Last of Us. I finished it.
Okay.
It's just really good. I've enjoyed it. I know that a lot of people have seen like The Walking Dead and make comparisons, but this doesn't feel like it's even on the same planet as it. But that's me. I mean, I wasn't a huge Walking Dead kind of missed me. I watched the first 3 seasons. I read about 150 of the comics. So I was into it, but this hits me on a different level. I think that they tackled this dynamic that I'm really very fascinated by. That, you know, the broken man who seeks redemption through a cool, vulgar, very vulgar little kid with all the heart in the world, you know, and the full circle moments that they've had, the little Easter eggs, like Marlene being played by the, you know, or not going to spoil anything. The season
but in the
finale
final
Easter
episode, there's a big cameo for game fans if you dig into it a little bit.
So, you know, things like that on top of it just being good. You know, and I understand that, like, it splits the room, man, because like it really takes its time to tell the stories a lot of times, and especially for, you know, episodic TV that could be a little weird. You know, it's a different pacing that I'm used to. But if you give it a chance, it can be the saddest thing you've ever seen in your life, and maybe that's the whole point of it. But also, through the sadness, you realize that there's a beauty in just being alive at any given time, you know?
Well, I don't love Walking Dead and never have, but I am one of those people who feels like Last of Us is not this revolutionary thing on a storytelling level that a lot of people have said that it is. However, what makes it special and what makes it watchable and powerful in the way that you're saying is the thing that sets it apart from other stories like it that we've seen. And that's that relationship that you referred to. And even more so, the performances of Bella Ramsey and Pedro Pascal, which is like, I mean, it's like, there's so much going on between those two characters, and those two actors are pulling it off so well that there's like pivotal moments in the season that, even if I wasn't enjoying the episode that much watching it, because it is sort of depressing and slow paced, like you said, but I always ended up thinking about it. And like even the finale, I was like, wow, this show is just kind of a downer vibe for me. But then I was all day the next day thinking about the way the episode ended, and this idea of the lies you tell someone to protect them and to keep them safe. And then there's a lie told at the beginning of the same episode by a different person that it's like there's a bookend there that is like really been blowing my mind. Do you know what I'm talking about, Ronald? I guess
what's the beginning one? I know the end one. What is the beginning?
Well, I'll just say this:
does it have to do with something that somebody cuts?
Yeah, the mother lies about something to do with the baby.
That was huge.
And it's so that the baby can live. It's like so that this other person will not kill the baby, basically, or leave the baby to die. And then that lie opens the episode, and then at the end of the episode, we get another lie that's like told with good intentions, but also at the end of this season, the rupture has, I mean, I can only imagine what the ramifications are going to be of that last episode, and what one character did to save another, and how that's going to have impacts. So yeah, I guess it makes me wonder if I would enjoy it more or less, if there were more crazy zombie monster action, or if there were none at all, whether I would like that better than this kind of thing. But I think that's the one thing that's missing for me, is the sense of that as like this ongoing threat. I don't know if I felt that in the last few episodes of the season, like that it's this, like, that doesn't feel like, it feels like it's pretty easy to stay away from the threat at this point. But I'm sure that when the story ramps up, they're going to give us more insanity. Yeah. And I also think that taking a season to get to know these characters and their relationship is not the worst thing in the world to do. So I'm not having this like love reaction overall with the show, but I guess in a way I'm as hooked as anyone, because those two characters have really got me. And that's what the show is those two, basically. I mean, anyone they meet seems like they're not going to be around for more than an episode or two.
In the video game, I always felt like the humans were the worst people anyway. Those are the people that kill you in the game. Like, sure, the zombies would chase you around, but if you got cut, you know what I mean? It's like that's I think what I think the commentary is, that humans, right. I mean, even in a place where people are turned into literal or mindless monsters, that humans still can be more cruel than these, like.
Yeah, just that we can never get on the same page. You know, it's just
that's the Walking Dead thing too. Of like, you think zombies, you can kill them just by sticking a screwdriver into their head, but then you run into a new settlement of people, and what they're doing is much worse than anything you.
So evil, man. Yeah. So I kind of like that, but yeah, you're right, man. They do need to step into that. What'd you think about it?
I loved it in general, but like I kind of felt like I enjoyed. Maybe because, like, I guess I too kind of fell out of The Walking Dead at around season 3.
It's so boring. It was such a boring show for me. I had to. I don't know when I quit, but it was around that time too.
Even at that point, I was like kind of hate watching it to see like what happens.
Yeah.
But then it was just like, I'm done.
I thought everybody was an asshole on the show. There was anybody I liked.
I just really enjoyed. I mean, like I didn't really personally feel a lack of, monsters or whatever you want to call them. Like I didn't really feel the lack of it because I just kind of felt like, I felt like it was metered out nicely to the sense that like when you felt like they were like safe, like something would pop up, or like when a conflict between the humans was coming to a crescendo, especially like, in Kansas City, like something bigger is actually what like kind of breaks it all again. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what these creatures represent.
Yeah.
And it's also the kind of thing where like, and again, I don't know the game at all, so I'm only watching the show, but I like the idea like that this is something that's been that's been happening for whatever it was, like 20 years already.
I love that choice. I love that choice.
So we've kind of bypassed a lot of the early days of that we see a lot of times in those movies, and in those moments there's a lot more frenzy, there's a lot more chaos, there's a lot more of uncertainty of how to survive. So then we do see a lot of those creatures more frequently and those kinds of things, I feel like. So, the idea that we're 20 years into this and there are clear hierarchies or organizations or like, us versus them mentalities in these cities or these quarantine zones. I kind of like the idea that like these things just kind of still exist, in your mind around any corner. But the reality is that maybe they aren't as prevalent as they were, when this all started, people dying off or turning into different phases of what these things become, these creatures, become. But I don't know. I thought the show was incredible. I really do think just across anything else that was impressive of the show, it's really just the two leads really just, it's just another just HBO flex, and like they just cast things perfectly. The production's great. The show looks great. The writing is just phenomenal, I thought. But yeah, Pedro and Bella just like are just amazing together. And it's like simple scenes where there's not a lot of dialogue, simple scenes where, it's just a lot of like, glances or just time spent with one another. And then you have moments where like you really get into these really well-written sequences. But I just think, they've got a pretty big hit on their hands. And it's just another show that grew over its run in the first season, and across all the linear and non-linear numbers that HBO has been releasing. Like,
yeah, the finale was double the audience of the first episode, they said.
Right, and in a lot of ways that's like even that's at like the night of viewing. But like the whatever that window they call it, it's like something 4 window. I think it's 4 days after or 14 days after. But they were saying some numbers basically kind of show that the show is actually bigger than the first season of House of the Dragon, which is crazy. I don't know if that's a long-term thing. I think House of the Dragon probably long-term becomes their big marquee show because of just the story that it can do. But, I mean, The Last of Us is a huge hit for HBO. Tons of people are watching it. And, yeah, I just think it's another feather in the cap that Pedro Pascal is a star.
I was just about to say it's Pedro Pascal too having a moment.
He's the real deal, man. I mean, he's presenting at the Oscars. He's
great on SNL.
SNL, great. He was, Mandalorian season 3's out, which I'm behind on. But Last of Us probably.
I'm behind the one that came out today, but I've enjoyed the 2 that we've gotten.
He just and most importantly, he was on Hot Ones last week for those that follow.
People are talking about that too. That seems to be the mark of like
fucking incredible on that.
When people love you already, it's like that's the thing you do that makes people say, "All right, no, I
loved you, but now we're best friends." It's like that's what that show does. Like it either makes you a best friend of somebody or not. But he's great on that. I'd go back and watch it if you guys haven't checked it out.
And let's also talk about just briefly, like he's a guy who was around doing cameos and small roles and stuff forever before he got like the recognition that he got. And even that was slow because he was on Game of Thrones and people, I think I already knew him from Narcos at that point. If I'm getting my timeline right, or maybe
I don't think so. I think I don't think Narcos was before that season of Game of Thrones.
Well, I'm trying to figure out what I knew him from then, because I know I recognized him when he was on.
I don't know. It's close, maybe, but I'm pretty sure when he popped up on Game of Thrones, that was like, holy shit, who is this guy?
Now I want to know what he did before, just because I'm very curious.
Well, as we've learned recently,
I'm looking at a ton of things he cameoed on, so it could be just that I just recognized him from whatever.
Recently he's gone. A little clip has gone viral that he was on an episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Right. Yes. No, I know. I definitely didn't recognize him from that, but I remember that episode, but I didn't remember him from it. No, it looks like he was in several things that I watched before that. But I mean, it was just around that time where I remember us when Narcos, we were talking about like, who's this guy who has this like classic leading man energy, and he's so cool, and he's like the Han Solo of this piece. You just really want to watch him more, and he had the right. I don't know, there was something to that guy. Now it's just in full flower, and he said something about he's just drawn to those roles where he's working with, like, it's about him caring for another character. People had said, what is this coincidence, between the Mando kind of lone wolf and cub story and the father-daughter vibe that's going on Last of Us. And he said he thinks he's just drawn to that idea of a character, that they have somebody that they care for, or some stakes that are outside of themselves. So I don't know. He's having like that maximum dad moment that people love to like, I don't know. It just seems like he's having that. And it's cool to see an actor that you've been kind of following for a little bit get to that level where now he's a name, You
love to see it. But yeah, I don't know. I'm curious to see what he has, like how this kind of rolls into whatever the next phase of his career is, because like he had that Nick Cage movie this year that kind of was very well reviewed, and I thought was actually pretty good. He was great in it. The unbearable weight of whatever it's called.
He's funny in it too. Like
I don't know. Like I'm curious what he has coming up next beyond, more, of the IP that he's already a part of. But love some Pedro Pascal for sure. But
well, I want to mention something that I saw that I think you saw as well, Steve, that we both enjoyed, but you mentioned really loving. But I think Women Talking is an incredible movie. And you said you wish you'd seen it when it was, late last year, because it definitely would have made your list.
No doubt.
Echo that completely. I don't know where it would have been, but definitely top 5 for the year if I had seen Women Talking in time.
It's one of those things where it's just like there's like no way to see it, and it's like it finally becomes available right around the Oscars, and it's like, okay, I'm going to try to watch this. Just so I, because it was the front runner for adapted screenplay, and I was just like, man, I gotta get this movie. And I'd heard a lot of good things about it. I really like Sarah Polley as the filmmaker.
She's great. She's really smart.
But yeah, I wasn't prepared for it, honestly. Like I didn't really know that. I mean, I knew the story that the movie was telling, but I guess I just wasn't prepared for like the emotional impact it had on me. Like I did not expect to be like crying multiple times during this movie.
Oh wow.
We're just pulled in for like it's such an unusual type of story. It's kind of like a play, it's people talking. It literally is women talking, but it's got the storyline is so engrossing, and when it does go out of that they're like they're having like these conferences or debates, I guess, in this farmhouse. And it's like when you leave that space, it's for good reason. Most of the action is just the conversation between these different characters about what to do about their situation. And I agree with you, Steve. It was so relevant. And every time they got to some new little pocket of debate, it was like, oh, this is how they're going to get that idea in here. There were certain things that like they have characters saying things like, every point where they get a new wrinkle in their debate, it's another way that this movie addresses so much like that's going on in our culture and going on in our world, and like the history of everything is kind of like critiqued in this movie in this strange way. And I just think that it's amazing to see something like that. And it's just one fantastic actress after another. If you look at this list,
it kind of cannibalized itself, I think. Like it's kind of weird that there wasn't more acknowledgement for the performances in the movie. But it's just there's so many really good actresses that are all just really good.
Claire Foy is excellent.
I would say if any of them, if I thought any of them would like really kind of rise, I thought Claire Foy would probably be the one. I mean, I saw it after the nominations, obviously, but I had heard that she was probably the one that might get something. But it's kind of got overlooked at a lot of those awards shows. I also thought Ben Whishaw was really good in it too.
Incredible. You almost don't want to single him out.
I don't. I can't help it. I don't.
He was incredible. I mean, even the movie makes you feel like even the movie doesn't want to single him out too much because it is about the women. But whenever they give his character a little moment, it's so well earned, and he's like the perfect actor to play that role. I think, as far as the way he relates to the women.
I really like him, and that I watched the series that he had earlier this year or late last year. The This Is Gonna Hurt. I don't know if any of you watched that. You haven't seen it? Okay, yeah. I forget which it's on AMC Plus, I think. It's like it takes place in like a labor ward, but
I've heard about this.
He is incredible in it, and I've always liked him. And then I watched this, I'm just like, yes, everybody in this movie is incredible, including him. But like the last 10-15 minutes of the movie, I was just like, I was a wreck, man. I was not emotionally ready for this movie, and it completely works.
You don't know exactly what you want to happen. I mean, you know what you want to happen in general, but you don't know what you want to happen for specific. There's a few specific characters that you don't know what you wish for them, kind of, you know?
Right.
And I said Jesse Waters. I don't know why I said that. That's that awful. I think that's like a terrible pundit of some sort. But Jesse Buckley was
Buckley. Yeah.
He was awesome in this. But yeah, no, you're right. It does gain power as it goes along, but it's also like an hour and 40 minutes. I mean, I think it is a brisk, interesting movie. I hate to call it like a thriller or something, but it almost has the energy of a thriller.
It is tense.
You're just hanging on every word, and each line, each scene adds to your understanding of the situation. It's really expertly crafted, and it's written by Sarah Polley from a book, right?
Man.
But I mean, it's like it's written and directed by her. She's just, I mean, if you hear her in interviews too, she's just got such an intellectual approach to these things, but it's never lacking in emotional power. And it never feels stilted. It never feels like these characters are mouthpieces for like important thoughts you need to get across. They all feel like real people having real thoughts. Do you know what I mean, Steve? Like,
definitely, absolutely. No, it all feels very genuine. And yeah, they won an Oscar Sunday. So I mean, just you know, at least it got some acknowledgement there, and it was nice to see her up there accepting an Oscar. But yeah, that's out on video on demand too. You know, this is again an opportunity to catch up on some stuff that we missed. But I watched that movie, and like about an hour into it, I was like, son of a bitch, I should have watched this. This would make my list.
Yeah.
And then by the end of it, I'm like, not only would it make my list, it would for sure, like I told you guys, it would be in my top 5, no question.
Yeah.
Like it's that good. I mean, and I've been telling everybody about it that I've, you know, since I've seen it, just because it's like, man, I wish more people talked about it, because I just feel like it didn't get that attention that it needed.
God, it's so well crafted. It's even photographed really beautifully.
It's like gorgeous.
There's a couple of little cutaway moments, little quick scenes, like the last moment in the movie. There's a quick little cutaway moment that's just hits you like a ton of bricks, but it's gorgeous. You're right.
Yeah, definitely recommend for sure that one. I think that's it, guys. Anything else you want to mention?
I mean, I guess next week maybe we'll talk about some Ted Lasso and
maybe we could talk a little more about Scream, because I saw Scream.
Oh, let's do that.
But give it some time. So, you know, we'll talk some spoilers next week. More people may see it this weekend, but let that air out a little bit. And I'm trying to see Creed 3 too, man. I got to get to the movies, guys. My movie pass rolled over. I got all these points.
Congrats.
And I got none of the minutes to go use them.
Yes.
It's hard.
We got to talk about our experience with it. Yeah. If you want.
I'm anxious to use it. Yeah, I'm going to try. Oddly enough, I was like looking at it to go see Creed 3 possibly this weekend. And like the past few days I've been watching it. And it's really weird. And I saw this on the Reddit forum, and I mentioned the Reddit forum for Movie Pass to you guys because it's a laugh factory. But basically, like I'm noticing that certain movies at the theater by me, I don't know if AMC is selectively doing this. It's only showing one showtime for certain movies, like certain new movies. Like Creed 3, there's one showtime for the last 3 days, and it's at 3:15. There's no nighttime shows, nothing.
What?
So I don't know if it's a glitch or if I just need to go to the theater and buy a ticket to another movie and just like go see Creed 3 or what. But it's like on the Reddit forum, there's a lot of people posting that like certain chains are like somehow taking the showtimes out of the app, like out of the feed.
Oh my God.
Or they're stopping the cards from working. Because it's a MasterCard, like they're blocking MasterCard. I don't know, but I hope it doesn't go sideways like it did before, because I haven't yet to use it. But I'm excited to try it for the first time and see what happens.
Have you tried it yet, John?
No, I'm in the same boat. I saw my points roll over as well. So we all have the same number of points.
We've all got lots of points, guys.
We've all got the full 68, the full complement.
Yeah, that's it, baby. All right. So let's wrap this up. Schmovie.com is the website. You can go there to subscribe to the podcast on the podcast platform of your choice. Links are all over that page. You can also just listen to all the episodes there if you want. If you prefer the visual experience, and when I say visual experience, guys, I'm talking top notch.
3D.
Look at that.
Wow. I was just about to joke about how undynamic Ronald has been visually this week, but he did something. He just
went nuts, guys. So. You guys got to find the video. YouTube.com/Movie Schmovie podcast. If you want to know what we just referenced and you've already listened to this audio podcast, jump in 3D. Go right into roughly like the 50-minute marker or something like that, and you're in for a treat. And if you do go to the YouTube, please, if you can subscribe, hit that button so you get notifications when the videos drop. New episodes of the podcast every Friday, and the videos shortly after. And before Ronald falls asleep on this,
literally falls out of the frame.
I want to just let everybody know that, as always, you've made our day. Thanks.
Bye.